Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, a website designer and business coach for entrepreneurs and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want a deep dive into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a successful business and stand out in a crowd, you're in the right place. After creating a multiple six-figure-a-year website design business in my 20s, I'm ready to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, branding, website design, mindset, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Happy New Year to you if you are listening to this live, and good riddance to 2020, right? I'm recording this intro right now in that sweet little in-between time where we have, the days right after Christmas, but right before New Year's where you might be kind of working, kind of not. I took off completely the entire week of Christmas. It was so wonderful, such a great break. And then today I've kind of been slowly coming back into the office. I had a meeting with my team and some other calls, and now I just got back from a little walking break with Adam, and it's been a really great day. And I'm so excited for the fresh start that a new year brings. And I hope you enjoyed last week's episode 98. If you haven't listened to it yet on habit forming, definitely go back and get that one if you haven't listened. That will prep you so well for 2020. So when I was thinking about what episode to do first this year, this interview with Tianna felt absolutely perfect. And it's also really timely in my own business because leadership, team building, strengthening my company internally is something I'm really focusing on for 2021. So I'm really excited to bring you this episode because the conversation is absolutely amazing. You will be hearing from the lovely Tianna Tye, and we're talking about leading small teams. Tianna is an industrial organizational psychologist and team dynamics consultant, which is a mouthful. And she is so smart and savvy, so you'll totally get why. She has all these amazing credentials as you start listening to us talk. She's really great at covering this topic in a really approachable way. So we often hear advice, I'm sure you do, I know I do, for cool things you can do when your team is 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, whatever. But what if your team is just you? What if you are your entire team? Or what if your team is just you and one VA or one part-time team member, just a contractor or two? How do you lead them well? How do you create company culture? What are team meetings like when it's just one person? Those are the kind of questions we're talking about, and we're getting into the weeds of things like team meetings, core values, hiring, and so much more. So for those of you who often ask me to share hey, Elizabeth, what does your team look like? What do your team meetings look like? What was hiring like for you and things like that? I actually talk about some of that stuff here with Tianna, and then Tianna also shares what her team is like. Plus, team and leadership is literally her thing. So she has tons of beautiful, practical, and again, like I said earlier, approachable advice that I think will not overwhelm you, but instead encourage you in this new year to step into your leadership role within your company. Again, whether that is leading one other person or just even leading yourself, which I think is such a cool concept for us to think about. So without further ado, let's play that interview with Tianna. All right, guys, I am sitting here virtually with Tianna Tye, and I am so excited for this conversation because one, I don't think I've told you this yet, but I really love your podcast, and I've been gaining so much from it. I was literally listening to it this morning on the episode about remote team building activities was the topic. I think it's your one this week. But anyway, you have so much insight on this. So this is going to be a fun topic for those of you listening who are you're a team of one right now. You're starting to think about growing a team. Maybe it's you and one contractor. We're going to talk all about leadership in that regard. So Tianna, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Love that you listen to Tye Pod. That makes my heart really happy. But yeah, I'm always down to have any sort of conversation around teams and leadership, particularly in the online business entrepreneur space. So I'm super excited to chat.
Yay. Yeah. So for everyone who doesn't know you yet, can you kind of tell us, a bit about who you are, who you serve, and what you do in your business?
Absolutely. So, y'all already know my name is Tianna Tye. It basically profession. I'm an industrial organizational psychologist. It's a freaking mouthful. I get it. Simply put, that means that I dedicated my career to studying human behavior, specifically in the workplace. So, all the things around teams and leadership and what makes people motivated at work and keeping them engaged and doing so in this topsy turvy, like virtual world, all of that is totally my jam. So I actually started in Fortune 500 consulting, working with, executives at that tippity top level with like multiple billion-dollar businesses, which is cool. Love them. But I will say that my heart definitely belongs to this entrepreneur online business space. I just love the prospect of being to come in and, like you said, with Tye Pod, serve up all this really good information on how you can do these things really, really well, even as a small business owner, because that means that we're building businesses that people love to work for from the ground up. And that's what makes me really, really excited about it.
Yeah, that's really cool thinking about too. Like, how'd you get into online business from that? I'm curious.
I will say I'm very much a millennial. You know what I'm saying? So I actually, just by, I guess, luck of the draw, I have always had some sort of role, after high school. Obviously, high school, I was doing the normal, like, work at Starbucks jobs. But since then, I've always had some sort of role that had a virtual component. So I've always worked at least like 25% virtually in any role that I had since then. And in doing that, once I actually I went the traditional route. So I went and got my bachelor's in psychology, went and got my master's in IO psychology. And it just felt really natural to me to dig into specializing in virtual everything.
Yeah.
So virtual leadership, what makes a virtual team different? Because it's not the same as having, real life humans in a room. We know what that energy feels like, especially living through 2020, surviving it.
Gosh,
We know
so
that
relevant.
it feels a lot different not being able to hug people. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just naturally, because of my own career experience, I specialized in those things.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, when I actually first got introduced to the space, I think Jenna Kutcher really was my window into the whole like online business world.
Yeah.
And once I discovered it, I didn't look back. I was like, yes, this is where I need to be. These are my people. And we're building the next generation of businesses. And I have to be a part of that.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is. And the whole, like, your expertise in virtual really is so relevant, like, especially right now, but also just in general. Like, for me, I have a lot of contractors who work with me, and then also now two main team members. And the first one I hired, it's almost her 1 year anniversary, but she was local to me when I hired her. And I was like so set on like, I want someone who's local. And that was really important to me. And she moved like a few months into the job. And it was like, well, that's fine. Like, but the funny thing about it was like, I had thought that maybe we'd be like meeting up constantly and things like that. But we had actually done everything virtually, even though we were both in Nashville. And yeah, it ended up made me realize like it was actually okay for her to not be physically here, especially when we look at how this year has been in general.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think so many people are in that remote team boat. So yeah, like, first question then for you, for us to like dive into this topic. So thinking about listeners who are a team of one, like we were talking about before this, which again, like, that's where we all start. Like, literally, I mean, gosh, would you say like everyone in online business starting like just themselves without another hire immediately, right?
Just about. Like, there, some people go into this thing with like a partner or something, but very few people make a hire right out of the gate unless it's not necessarily their first business. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or like, I guess a quick contractor, like hiring a website designer or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So thinking
Short
about
term.
that, yeah, when it's just us and we are the every person on the team, how do we lead ourselves as a team of one? What are some like tips you can give us for that?
Oh, I love that question, because you're right. That's where we all start. And I don't know, it's funny. It's a very empowering place to be, because we're like, yeah, I'm Superwoman. I wear all the hats. I do all the things. Everybody bow down. I can do this, right? But at the same time, it's a very exhausting place to be the longer you're in it. And that's just kind of the reality. But one of my favorite things, and this is something I recommend anybody does before they start hiring, to be honest with you, and it's taking a really deep look, honestly, into the back end of your business. And that's not the sexiest place to spend your time. Like, let's keep it real. We're so tired of hearing systems, put in systems, yada, yada, yada. And there are so many amazing people who are specialists at that, but I cannot downplay how actually valid what they say is. Like, it is so, so important. So from my perspective, when it comes to like leading yourself, one of the first things you want to do is I have this tool and I call it the daily work log. And in it, we track all of the tasks that we're doing on a daily basis and the tasks that are not getting done. But beyond that, I have people categorize them as this can be automated with a system. And that's where I often recommend anybody starts, because even when it comes to leading yourself, if you can clean up the back end of your business and get that running smoothly, by the time you are ready to start bringing in people, they're not going to be brought into a sinking ship. They're going to be brought into a ship that has been well maintained and can run semi-autonomously. You know what I'm saying? And that is a beautiful, beautiful place to be as somebody who, honestly, like, the main person you depend on is yourself. But y'all, it's 2020. It's going to be 2021. There's a lot of technology out here that can really, really help us. And fun fact, a lot of people make the mistake of like hiring a VA to do work that a system can do. And that's no shade to VAs. VAs are a godsend and I love them to goodness, but they are human beings and they are more than qualified to do more complex work than like what a Honeybook or a Dubsado or even an Asana can do in terms of your task management, right? So oftentimes I tell people, when it comes to leading yourself, I'm actually going to make you open up the hood and take a look into that back end and get yourself organized.
Yes. Okay. And you are literally speaking my language with that about the tools, but I literally was on the Strategy Hour podcast recently talking about Dubsado, and I said that Dubsado was my first team member, is how I phrased it. Like, that's literally how it felt. I love that. Yeah, I mean, it really was like, and what you're saying, you're so right. VAs are incredible, and what you said, they're humans and should do work that's different than an automation software. So looking into the back of our business. And okay, the daily work log, is there a place people can get that from you, or is that something, where is that?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So you could just go to my site. I've got like the freebies loud and proud, but I will also make sure that we have that like in the show notes, whatever, to make sure they can access it. It's totally free. And I dropped off talking about how we outline which tasks you can automate. The next step is categorizing which tasks you can delegate. Okay. So that is one of the first steps in terms of becoming ready to start building your team. Because over time, if you're completing a document like this, a resource like this, and you're marking which things you can delegate, over time, you'll start to see patterns and you'll start to be like, okay, this podcast of mine that I spend 5 hours per episode managing, I really think one of my first hires really could be a podcast manager. Maybe I don't need a VA. Maybe I don't need an OBM yet. Maybe I just need someone to fully take this piece of my content strategy, i.e. the podcast, and handle it for me, because that would give me 5-6 hours back every single week. You know what I mean? And I love using podcasting as an example because we're on a podcast right now. So the community is probably familiar. A lot of work goes into these episodes, y'all.
And that's something people don't realize that with podcasting of like, and for me, one thing I did that might be helpful to someone listening to, when I started my podcast, I had hired someone pretty quickly to do the like designs for it, putting the show notes in, blogging it. But then also I edited my first 3 episodes because I wanted to know kind of what went into it. And then I immediately hired someone after that. But I did the first 3.
Editing those episodes is no joke.
You know what? You get tired of listening to yourself. You're like, I just listened to myself record this for 45 minutes and now I have to listen to myself again. Like, it's like, oh, can't do that.
And it takes like double the time because you're like listening for that one time you coughed or like did super deep breath that's really distracting or whatever.
So if you're a podcaster, don't edit your own show. Yes.
Not worth it.
Okay, yeah. So the first step was automating the system. Second step was figuring out what we can delegate. Is there a third step to this, or what do we do next?
Yeah. So after you take a look at what you can automate, take a look at what you can delegate, obviously what should be left is the things that you like to do, the things that are in your zone of genius, right? And then beyond that, I often have people look at which of these tasks are needle movers, which of these tasks really do generate revenue or, generate a lot of leads for my business, even if it's not direct revenue, right? Because for many entrepreneurs, the reality is we are really freaking scrappy. And honestly, let's keep it real. Like money can be tight, resources can be limited. So we have to be intentional and really make the best hiring decision possible, right? So like we said, maybe it's a time thing. Maybe if you outsource the podcast management and you got the 6 hours back, that frees you up to accept that new client. That frees you up to do, one extra speaking engagement a month, whatever. If the revenue makes sense from that perspective, the hire automatically is going to pay for itself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the bigger reasons why I have people start to look, we get deep, you know what I'm saying, even before we make the hire, because if we do it the right way, we can be building a team of people who are not just like freeing up our time, but actually helping us drive that bottom line, which then they will pay for themselves and they will take the weight off your shoulders. And that's just like a win-win scenario. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm totally with you of that. And I think that's the thing that's hard for people sometimes, of like feeling like the finances aren't there for the first hire. I remember, I think I waited probably longer than I should have to really start hiring, which I think a lot of people do. And I'm like, whatever to that. Because it's one of those things where I listen to podcasts sometimes and everyone's like, you need to hire like immediately. And I'm like, sometimes like you just don't yet. Like I wasn't ready. Now when I did do it, I mean, about a year and a half ago is when I started really having people helping me, and it made so much sense financially and everything. So I think it's okay to wait, but I love all those to kind of help you prepare for that.
Absolutely. I got to comment on the people who are like, outsource, hire immediately, bottom line, blah, blah. Okay. First of all, that's like very, I don't know, it's a very dominant energy in those statements, right? Yeah. And it makes you feel like you're very behind. And what I want to say about that is, one, I understand sometimes outsourcing, you can pay somebody $20 an hour and you can go make $100 an hour, and financially it makes total sense. But I love what you said in terms of, but I just wasn't ready. Because also I really hate the fact that, especially in this industry, when those decisions are really just driven by money motivation, we tend to hire before we also are emotionally ready to take on the responsibility of what it means to bring someone onto our team and into our organization. And that doesn't sit right with me, to be honest with you. Yes. Like, I really don't like that, because the leaders that I work with, they're in business for the long run. Like, we are building companies that are going to stand the test of time. This isn't just some like quick, get rich scheme or whatever. Yeah. So genuinely, I want you to do the due diligence to make sure you're comfortable, you're in a good space emotionally to be like, okay, yes, I'm going to bring this person on. Yes, I can dedicate an hour a week to make sure they are where they need to be. I can dedicate the time to do the weekly team meeting, to check in with them on both a personal and a professional level, all of those things, right? Because I'm getting long-winded here, but I just hate like when they're like outsource, outsource. And it's just like more cogs in the machine. And I'm like, what are we building here, you guys? Why did we start these businesses? But to create a good place for us to work, we need to do the same thing for other people.
Amen. I seriously feel I feel like we could rant about this. So I'm with you. You said that so well, of like, it is like for me, just to kind of, and we can move on from this soon, because I do have another question that follows up with this. But for me, I wasn't sure that I wanted a team. Like, I literally was like, I'm introverted. I like working alone. I'm not an entrepreneur that needs the coffee shop. I like my home office, and I like being alone. And so it was like a decision for me of like, I don't know if I really want to work with other people. And now I'm like, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't doing that, and my business would not have gotten to where it is. But with that, like, thinking about what you're saying of, you just listed so many things people are literally feeling when they're thinking about hiring. But for the woman or man listening who's like, I think I kind of want to hire. I think it could make sense. It makes sense financially, so that's not the thing. But they feel imposter syndrome about leading. A lot of people like young, I think you're like me, like similar in age, but like when I started my business, I was 22. So I'm like, I don't feel like I can like lead someone right now, like barely lead myself, you know. For that person, like what would you say to them to like overcome that feeling of imposter syndrome?
I love this question. So I think the first thing I would say is if you are questioning whether or not you feel worthy, ready, willing to be a leader and to hire and build your team, the first thing I would say is honestly, kudos to you. And that's like a really weird response. But the reason is when I encounter a future leader who is feeling that fear, that means that they actually understand the responsibility and they understand the weight of making that decision, because they're not just going to hire somebody and freak out and fire them in 30 days, which a lot of people do. No shade, it happens, but a lot of people do that. And so first of all, just like, good job taking it seriously. Good job thinking and feeling your feelings. Like that's totally fine. Obviously, if you're ready to hire from a financial perspective, that's one thing to tick off and let that go. We don't have to worry about that. But from an emotional and just like, oh, I don't know if I can take this on perspective, a lot of times, honestly, I find that when people have a plan in place, it really, really works wonders for their comfort level. And by plan, I don't just mean knowing who you want to hire in what order. We do that too, obviously, but also knowing what type of leader do I want to be? Like, I already know that I'm feeling some resistance against this, but if I were to make this leap, what is going to feel good to me? Does a weekly meeting for an hour already feel overwhelming? Maybe I can start smaller. Does having a team of 10 feel really overwhelming? Okay, what is the vision for my business? What are the goals attached to that vision? How many people do I actually need to help me achieve that vision and that impact in my business, right? So I often encourage people to dig really deep into those sorts of questions and kind of start to formulate a plan for how they want to lead, even before you're ever a leader, because I'm kind of like you, ma'am. So I'm an Enneagram type 5, if anybody's familiar.
I'm a
We are the
6 wing
object.
5, I think. I
Oh,
think I'm
hey,
a wing 5. I
girl.
switch between wings, but yes, I'm with you on the 5 stuff.
Okay, and my husband's a 6, so I'm extremely
Oh, that's cool.
familiar.
Yeah.
But honestly, like I'm much the same way. I am an introvert. I found out that actually I'm I don't know if it's the subset. I think that's the name for it. I'm the social
Okay.
5.
Yeah.
Which made a lot of sense to me, because a lot of people are surprised that I'm a 5, because I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? But anyways, as an Enneagram 5, I'm much the same. Like, I am introverted. COVID-19 hasn't really been that much of a struggle for me quarantine wise, because like I don't mind being alone. So even when I was starting to build my team, I had to do the same process for myself, because I was like, okay, I already feel anxiety about having this responsibility and having so many people need me. And that's a big thing for 5s. It's like feeling like everybody's going to need you and they're going to take all your time and energy. And we just freak out about that when we're not healthy, right? So I had to start to jot down, okay, what feels good for me? A weekly meeting feels good for me. It only really needs to be 30, 45 minutes tops. You know, check-ins via chat feel better to me than having to schedule individual check-ins via phone with my team members on a daily basis. So I literally just kind of went through the list and figured out for myself what doesn't make me want to run away. Like as simple as that. Because if you can put that plan in place, honestly, it takes a lot of the anxiety out of the situation.
Yes. I mean, that's amazing advice. Yeah. So, like, what feels good for me? Yeah. And that's like, we can see advice about teams and feel like we have to be that kind of leader, like that person's doing.
And I have to comment on that, because even with Tye Pod, you've seen it, ma'am. I share a lot of different, like, do a stand-up meeting, do this type of meeting. Have you tried this type of communication or this? We present a lot of information, and the rule of thumb is you don't have to follow any of it. Anything we're ever talking about, is best practice. It's research validated. It's all good, copacetic. You know what I'm saying? But I am not in the business of like telling people how they have to lead. We're often in the business of helping people uncover what the best style of leadership is for them, right? So that's the point. It's kind of like a charcuterie board, picking and choosing what feels good to you, you know?
Yes, I love that. And yeah, with even like your example of meetings and how you want to communicate with your team, that is something to like really look into and experiment with. Like for my business, we do a weekly standing meeting, and we did not like I haven't always done that. That's actually more like probably the last maybe 7 or 8 months of doing that. And then just recently, about a month ago, I completely wiped out the old meeting format. We had like an agenda we were following, completely scrapped it and came up with a new one, told my main team member, Abby, like, here's our new format. Let's try it. And now with this other new person, Stacy, like the 3 of us are doing this new format, and it feels so much better than what I was doing before. But I wouldn't have ever gotten to this new format had I not like just gone with the other one that I got it from the book Traction, the format I was using before. Yeah, and it was fine. Like, I get that it wasn't right for me. Like, the adjustments I made to it were right for my business and the kind of conversations I wanted us to have. But yeah, it is like, trial and error so much with it. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, and I think that's totally okay, and that's natural. That's like what human beings do. Yeah. So we try to like, I don't know, we hear these formulas because I love Traction, read it a couple times, like, and we use some of those tools sometimes, and sometimes we tweak things, Same thing with 90-day orientations. I just had a client who put one of those in place for a new marketer that she brought on. But guess what? Like, the prescriptive way to do it didn't really work for her. So what do? We tweaked it. Like, y'all, this is all about figuring out what's right for you and what's right for your business. And that's totally okay.
Yes. Well, I love that. Okay, with all that, so let's say the people listening, because I know this is a lot of people's boat, it is them plus one person who might be like completely part-time. They might be a contractor still, but they're like considered like a in the trenches with them team member. So when they sometimes maybe hear advice, like maybe the Traction meeting formats, like that could feel kind of weird when it's just 2 of you. Like some of this makes less sense. I know that was true for me with it. Like we adjusted even the original one because it was like there's only 2 of us in this meeting most of the time. So what are your tips for like creating company culture, accountability, communication, even like when it's just 2 people or 3 people even?
Such a good question. And you're right. That's where the majority of people are. And even if it's like, 2 people and then it's like a gaggle of contractors that come and go based on the projects, right? That's what I see 9 times out of 10.
Yes.
And honestly like my biggest thing for company culture. It sounds super formal, but I swear it's not. Okay, so it's core values, and that's really what it boils down to start with. And the reason being is like I don't know, I used to work at Starbucks. I mentioned that earlier in the episode, and a lot of people don't know on like the inside of the smock, we've got like our mission, and I believe the core values are printed inside.
Oh,
And it's little cues like that to where even if you're just like, you know, a barista in Roswell, Georgia, like I was, they make you understand how you're supposed to show up and how you're supposed to do the work that you do, right? So that's how we define core values. The mission and vision is like who we help and why we help them. The core values are, but how do we do what we do? Not that team over there, not that marketing agency over there, this one right here. How do we operate as a team? And it works wonders, even for like teams of two, because what happens is as you start to, you know, do your work and have those engagements, and you as the leader obviously are giving them feedback. So when they do something good, you're like, man, that was so amazing. Here's why. You can tie in those core values. So like for my team, I'm like always wearing this necklace, but it says be intentional. And that's one of our core values. And so when I see somebody, so I have like interns, right? And if they pitch me ideas for our new episode of Tye Pod, because they do a lot of research for Tye Pod, if they pitch me ideas and they're connecting it back to what they heard me talk about, like via strategy, our last meeting, I'm like, dude, I see what you did there. Like, I see that you were listening. I see that you went and did some digging, and I see why you pitched me this particular topic. That was so intentional. I am so here for it. And it's as casual as that. It's not some like big stuffy conversation, but the bottom line is knowing what your team stands for can really help you like hold each other accountable for showing up in that way. And again, not super formal. It can be done with like two people. Literally, I know some people that like when they welcome someone into their team, I have a client, she just made backpacks. And they have the core, because her core values are really cute, and it's like alliteration, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they all start with the same letter, and it's adorable. And so she put it on team backpacks. And so when someone joins her organization, she welcomes them in and gives them this backpack with like a token of who we are. And I love that. And that can be done whether you've got 2 people or 20 people.
Yes, I love that. And I'm with you. I have core values as well that I came up with. It was just me. So that's something thinking about, like, while it's just you come up with that, when you hire someone, bring that into the conversation. And if someone's listening now who's like, I have, you know, me and a contractor and it's the two of us and I've never thought about core values, you can still do it. And then next team meeting, be like, hey, this new thing I've decided to do, core values, let's talk through these and figure out how they all are in action. And one thing too that might be helpful to people, I have like a PDF that's like Elizabeth McCravey Company core values. Each one has a page, and on the page it says what it is at the top, and then it has a description, and then it says what this looks like in action to kind of clarify, like, okay, you know, when we say like integrity, which that's a common one that people have, it's like, what does that even like mean though? You know what I mean? I know we know what the word integrity means, but it's like, how does that play out? Like you're saying, be intentional. Like that's an amazing one. And you just gave an example how it plays out, but I like that to kind of tell people how it looks.
I'm so obsessed with your PDF.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad.
I need to see it.
Yes,
the nerd in
I'll
me is
send it
like,
to you.
ooh, documents, resources, templates. I love it.
Well, and the designer was like, I have to make this pretty before I send it to everyone. So it's like, it has like the brand colors and fonts and all that happening. So,
oh, I'm so here for it. That would be a fantastic example for people. And I know that, just so everybody knows, like I do have a Facebook group, the Leader Circle, and in there we do have a core values workshop. So between like that and your fancy schmancy beautiful document that I really want to put my eyes on now, y'all, core value, it's not this like big scary thing. You can do it, you know, pour a glass of wine and do it in a couple hours, like sit and think and write, and it'll be great. It's not this big thing. You can do it by yourself or with your team members.
Yes. Yeah, it really is just thinking about, I mean, you could start by pulling from your core values as a person even, but then also
That's
thinking, same. And like, I thought too, of like, how do I like to show up in my business? But one thing you're reminding me of right now is like, I think I need to be better about bringing the core values into meetings. And like, cause it's like we have them, but we don't talk about them much. So even though I
Right.
have like what looks like an action, it's like, we're not actually like discussing this often. So that's something like I can just do. Like, it doesn't have to be a big thing
Yeah.
to bring it up again. So I love
That's
that.
definitely that's one of those things about putting stuff like this into action because we can, create it and it just sits there. And mine did for a long time. I won't tell a lie about it. But
Yeah.
once you like start living and breathing them yourself, it always starts with you leading yourself. So am I being intentional? Am I being resourceful? Am I working in integrity? Right? So it starts with you holding yourself accountable, because once you start getting used to like calling yourself out, good or bad, on these behaviors, it gets a lot more natural to do so with your team members.
I love that. So what's another tip you can give us for the leading one other person or two other people as a small team?
I mean, I love some good organization. So, what I would say is even when you have a really small team or when you're working by yourself, right? Either situation works for this. It's super tempting not to put in, again, my favorite word, systems. It's super tempting not to go and get like that CRM or that project management software, which they are different. So if you need to look that up, you
Yeah.
need both, friend.
That's true.
But even when it was literally just like me and my social media manager, we were setting up Asana, and then we very quickly actually switched to ClickUp. So I'm now like team ClickUp. But yeah, very much so, because what I find is like when it's just you and one other person, it feels easy to do things on the fly. And you're just like, why do I need this formal system? It's so heavy. It's going to take forever to set up, blah, 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 blah. But it honestly, for me, as someone who loves systems, but I am not naturally a super organized systems person, let me be clear. It trains you, and it trains you to work in a more organized fashion. That way, as your business takes off, which it will because you're awesome, okay? As your business takes off and it grows and it scales and you need to bring more people on, again, you're not bringing them into a sinking ship. You're bringing them into a company that you have run with intention and kept organized and done so via a system.
Yes, I love that. And that really is like a way you can start preparing, even when we're talking about like when you're doing everything yourself for a while. I know one thing I did before I hired Abby like a year ago was I made a process for some of the things I was already doing myself. Like going
Oh,
ahead and
yeah.
thinking like, okay, I want someone to eventually do this. This time I'm going to document myself doing it so that it's there for whenever the right person is available for this. So I love that.
We love those SOPs, y'all.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
ma'am. Yes,
I'm with
ma'am. So
you.
look, that is fantastic advice. 110%. Like if there are certain ways that you like to do things, make an SOP for it. And if you look, we'll link it, Tye Pod. We've got a whole episode around how to put together an SOP. It's super easy once again. But yeah, just like make an SOP for it. And if you want to hire for things eventually that you're not really great at, so like if you actually are no good at managing your own social media, then when you bring them on, one of the first things they should be doing is making SOPs for your business around how they do it, right? Because that's why you
Yeah.
hired an expert. So it can go either way. Document your processes, or as soon as you're bringing people on, make sure they're documenting their processes so that over time you have the way that you do things clearly laid out for you.
Yes, yes, that's wonderful. Yeah, okay, another question for you. This relates to everything. So still thinking about
Okay.
just a few team members, but those remote team meetings, a lot of people are, over Zoom or maybe they're still on a phone call. But I guess a question for you is like, what could we do in our meetings or just in general, but to help us actually get to know that one other person or two other people on like a more friendship level, even as
Yeah,
their leader? How do we do
I
that
do.
well?
I do. So a lot of people don't know, but like when it comes to virtual teams, one of the biggest downfalls is the fact that because you don't just like run into people in the hallway, you're not sharing an office or anything like that. We don't do small talk, which sounds dumb, but like we don't talk to each other on a personal basis unless someone is just like extra vibrant on your team. It's just like, oh my God, you have a kid? Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? But a lot of times we're very just like, do your work. Here are your tasks. Okay, these are our goals. This is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. Okay, great meeting. See you guys later. And then you don't talk for another week. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So simple. Literally, it sounds silly. I like icebreakers, y'all. It's a lot of icebreakers are cool. Yeah. And they can really, really help, especially if you're not at that place where you already like feel like friends and have a more personal relationship, right? So if you're trying to get there, my team, we love a good game of two truths and a lie because it's casual. We play it at parties anyways, so we're all familiar. And it actually uncovers really funny stories. So we don't just play it and then like move on like we're robots or something. A lot of times we'll do two truths and a lie. I remember I have a team member who I've known for years. I've known her for years. She became my team member about 1.5 years ago. I had no idea that this woman cheered for an NFL team on like one of those junior leagues. And it started this whole conversation. I'm just like, what else don't I know about you? Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's silly little icebreakers like that can actually uncover some very fun stuff and help you guys get to know each other.
Okay, I love that that's your advice because that's when I told you I just redid our meeting format. That was one of the things I changed because in Traction, they have you do, I think it was like just a check-in on how are you kind of thing at the beginning. And we changed.
And they do like a high-low thing, I think.
Yeah. It was more like, it was less fun in my mind and less like what you're saying of like pulling that out because we aren't passing each other in the hallway, which is such a good way to put it. But we started doing, I come to the table, they don't get to know what the question is, but an icebreaker question. And I just thought of a few to kind of, I love the two truths and a lie, but I heard you say that in your podcast. I was like, I'm definitely going to add that one in because you're right, that one, it leads to such great conversations. But two that I've done recently, if you were going to have to be, or if you could be a contestant on any reality TV show, which one and why? Led to great conversations.
Oh, stealing that. Yeah. Stealing it.
Which is so fun, too, because you can kind of see from that, like, oh, do they want to be on Survivor or an HGTV show or The Bachelor? You know, like, what do they want to do? Another one that I actually asked in this week's meeting was when you were 5 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up? So that was, fun just to kind of see, like, going into thinking about when we were kids. Another one I did recently, if you could have an extra hour every day to do something just for you, what would you do? So just some stuff like that. And I love what you're saying too, of like, ask the question, let the conversation happen, plan that into the meeting. So you can keep talking about it. I love that.
Absolutely. A lot of times we spend like a full 15 minutes not talking about anything work related before we get into like the work meeting. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I know some people like roll their eyes at that and whatever. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes you got to like get stuff done and there's a deadline or something going on. Totally get it. Everything's flexible. But sometimes we can slow down, you guys, and get to know our team members, and it's okay. We have 15 minutes. It's cool.
Yes. And okay, let me let this be, because I know we're getting farther on time. I want one question for you, something I want you to tell everyone about, and then I want to move into our rapid fire questions. But you talked about this in your podcast, and I thought it was brilliant, so I want you to just tell everyone basically what you said here. Okay. But you had mentioned about the idea of like a team coffee break, lunch break together, happy hour for virtual teams. Can you talk about that? Because I thought that was another great one for building. And again, with one person, this would work excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this one kind of came to me because I don't know if you're familiar with the 5 love languages, but there's a work version. It's the 5 languages of workplace appreciation. That's a mouthful, but it's basically the same thing. Wow. And one of the big ones is quality time, right? So I'm always on the lookout for like, how can we encourage quality time in like a virtual setting? Super simply, why not schedule a lunch or a coffee break? Like, I feel like, especially in the online space, we do this with like ideal clients. I see tons of people like, come have lunch with me, and they'll get on an Instagram live. So I'm like, why can't we do the same thing with our team? You know what I mean? Yeah. I know schedules can be a thing, you know what I'm saying? But simply put, like, figure out 30 minutes where everybody's schedule can align, you know, once a month, twice a month, and just get on and have a meal together or have a drink together. Fun, drink or not drink. I'm always like one for cab, but you know, do whatever and don't talk about work. Don't talk about work at all. Just use the time to get to know one another, check in about life, see what's up, whose dog did something funny, who is stressed out about the holidays, like what's going on with everybody as a human being.
And I'm gonna literally, when I heard you, I was listening to this episode this morning, but when I heard you say that, I was like, I need to do that because like the team meeting time, doing like the fun stuff, it's like that's great, but like it is nice to have a whole like, okay, we're not talking business, we're just talking life together. And another thought I had that could kind of go with that, of if it's like a team coffee break or lunch or whatever, maybe you put it on the calendar and you send the team members a gift card for like $10 to Starbucks and tell them, hey, go buy your Starbucks and then we're going to be here at 10 a.m. and we're going to hang out. Like, I just think that could be so fun and such like a gift to kind of add in a little something sent to them there.
Easy. Yeah. It's easy. It doesn't take a lot of maintenance and it's nice. It's just a nice thing.
Yeah.
I love that. Definitely do a gift card. That's dope.
Yes. And that's too, when you said the love languages, figuring that out. I recently did that of like, okay, what's everyone's love language? I wasn't asking about the work one. It was just more of like the generalized love language, but hearing people.
I'll tell you a little secret. The work one is just all the same questions, but it's like at work.
Okay. Yeah. Cause
so it's really quite the same.
Yeah. I know what I think too, but I guess like, I mean, people who probably want gifts the most probably also feel that way with work, wouldn't you think? Or would it really actually be different?
Not 9 times out of 10, but like the main ones that can be a little different is like people who value quality time with their spouse may not equally value quality time with you. Like, no shade to you.
No, I'm with you. That feels very different.
It's a little different. You know what I'm saying? So that's the only time where, actually having them think about it at work and like within this group can change their responses a little bit,
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I need to look into that then, of like the work one. Okay. There's so many. Okay. We've had so many great tips throughout this whole conversation. Okay. Last question and then we'll do rapid fire. Like, is there anything else that you want to do? Just a quick piece of advice for people as they lead a small team virtually.
I love that question. I think my last like tidbit of advice, it's not really advice, it's more like motivation, is just like business, is a journey. Okay. So I give a lot of advice on the daily. You're not supposed to flip a switch and just be the best leader and this is all going to come so easily and you're a great communicator and you can handle when people have conflict on your team. Like, this is real life, guys. So it's going to be a journey. And if you're engaged in this conversation that we're having right now, you're already doing the right thing. So I just want to take a little bit of the pressure off and just encourage you to take it step by step. That's literally what we're all doing out here.
Yes. Amen. That's true. Step by step. I feel like, I'm constantly learning and growing and figuring it out as a leader. So I love that. Okay. Some rapid fire questions. These are fun. And then I want to share where everyone can find you too. But first question, favorite business book that we should all read?
My current favorite is Who, Not How. And I believe it's by Dan Sullivan.
Okay. I think
it came out this year.
Okay. I was going to say, I haven't heard of that book by him. I've heard of him. Okay. Next question was, what's your Enneagram type, which you already said you're a 5, but what's your, you think you're a wing 6?
Wing 4? I think I'm a wing 4, actually. I don't know. My melancholy really be up there.
My husband's a 3 wing 4 and my mother's a 4. And it really is like, there is a moodiness to that for sure.
Oh, there is. My best friend is a 4, but I thank goodness for her every day because she brings the feelings out of my 5-ness.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. Okay. Favorite simple thing that you do with your team to like build this, we kind of already talked about this, but just a thing you do to build team culture or like relationships with your team specifically.
I guess if it's not like the 2 truths and a lie, just like chatting, I would say like super little thing. We're all connected on social media. So when I see things going on in their life and stuff like that, I'm not blind. So I comment on it. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's good. Making it, taking away the work, hanging out.
Little normal things.
Yes.
Yeah.
A random business software or tool that we should check out and might not know about.
Ooh, might not know about.
Or we can know about it, but I know it's kind of hard sometimes to think of like the more under the radar
That is
ones.
hard. That's super hard. Okay. Ooh, Deep Link.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
You may not know. Okay, y'all.
Yeah.
So I just launched my Facebook group, The Leader Circle. Best place to hang out if you're going to lead in any capacity, FYI. But I learned the software Deep Link from my business coach. And you know how like when you click on a Facebook group link and it takes you to Safari and then it wants you to log into your Facebook? This is a very annoying process. Deep Link skips that and it opens up the app instead, which is something I didn't know annoyed me until I found Deep Link, and I was like, dude, that has actually been annoying this entire time. And I just never thought about it.
Oh my gosh. So it specifically is working with Facebook or with Instagram too to bypass that?
So like, for example, you know how everybody has those links in your bio on Instagram? So my link in my bio for the Facebook group, it's a deep link link. That sounds really confusing. It's a deep link. And so when you click that, it automatically opens up the Facebook app and the Facebook group, and they don't get sent to Safari or like any other third-party window.
Okay,
that's cool.
That's going to seriously change the game for someone, because that is like, I literally ran into that exact problem yesterday, and I don't know my Facebook password. Like, I literally have no idea.
I know, neither do I.
So as far as like
30 years ago, dude.
I know, I'm like, I can't figure this out. And so then I'm like, can't you just open the app? Like, I'm already logged in. Okay, so that's really cool. A very nice little hack. Okay. This was amazing. Seriously, thank you for coming on. Can you tell everyone where they should connect with you? I know we talked about a few different links, and we'll link to them in the show notes, but where's the best place to come hang out with you?
Yes, we will make sure y'all get all the goods. If you know my name, you can find me like everywhere. So on Instagram, that's where I hang out all the time. I'm at Tianna Tye. My website is tiannatye.com. LinkedIn, Pinterest, everywhere else. Search my name, you'll find me, and I'll be hanging out, serving you up the goods, everything around teams and leadership.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the podcast this week, friend. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you about something. I would encourage you to check out my website template shop. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find Show It website templates, and they are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe you don't want to hurt its feelings, but you know it's true. And your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers. And that's what these website templates do on MShop. These are pre-made website templates built for the Show It platform, where you can plug and play your content into the template with ease and then get started with a website that is made to actually make you money. Isn't that what we all want, right? So go shop the templates at elizabethmccravey.com/shop. That link is also in the show notes. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate it if you left a rating and review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or even just share it with a friend. It's a great way to support the show and then give us your feedback. So thanks so much for listening.